Hi, and welcome to the first podcast of Talk Talks by Rule 107. My name is Maddie. I'm here with three of the other hosts of Rule 107. We've got Gianne.
Hello.
Got Carla.
Hello.
And we've got Anna.
Hi.
So just before we start, I figured it would be nice for everyone to get to know us a bit better. Maybe why don't we say our age, our favorite team, and our favorite racetrack. And I'm going to say this because I know you guys. One team, one racetrack. Not three, not five, one. So I'm 21. Turning 22 soon. My favorite racetrack has to be Silverstone, and my favorite team is Mercedes. I'm also a Lewis Hamilton fan.
So, as Maddie said, I'm Carla. I'm 23, and it's really hard to choose just one team, but I'm gonna go with Mercedes. And favorite track has to be Monza.
I've converted you.
Yes, you have, unfortunately.
You've had experiences there. I'm Anna. I'm 16, nearly 17. It's all right. My favourite track is Silverstone, but Spa's close. I kind of got put off last year, though. And my favourite team is Mercedes, and my favourite driver is Lewis.
So my name is Jane. I'm 20. And my favorite track is Monza too, I think. And favorite driver, I'm going to say Pierre Gasly pour la France.
Have you heard that, obviously just before we get into everything, they're talking about tracks whose contracts are ending being every other year tracks, to allow other tracks that haven't been raced on previously to have a chance to be in Formula One, because I thought that was really exciting.
Didn't hear about that.
And sorry, Jan. France is one of the ones that they're looking to do every other year.
Yeah, they have a contract till this year, I think, and then next year we're not sure that we're gonna have the French Grand Prix.
I won't lie. Paul Ricard is a bit of an eyesore. It's not even
on the other hand,
I just get a headache watching it.
Last year, sorry.
No, sorry. I just saw something about, Russia being cancelled and they're looking for new tracks to replace that. I saw someone talk about Hockenheim being in mind now that Germany restrictions are being not super strict. So that could be exciting.
That would be good. I also saw it could be Qatar.
Yes, Qatar,
which was like
at the top of the list at the moment, I think. Hockenheim don't have a contract because they didn't for one, they didn't have the money for it to do all the upgrades that they needed to do to pass the F1 regulations to be a track, because they had to upgrade some things. So I
thought that was the Nürburgring.
Wasn't it? For Hockenheim, I think, which is why they didn't go back for an racing license. But yeah, that's just a bit of info on tracks, since we were talking about them. Obviously, it was quite a hectic finish to last season, what with everything going on. Obviously, you'll have just heard we're all fans of Mercedes, and
very strong.
But I do think we need to say, none of us hold any, sour feelings towards any other team. Obviously, Max won the championship. I have to say, he deserves that championship. I think everyone would agree with that because of how confident he was last season. He wholeheartedly deserves that championship. I think it's a shame he won it in the way that he won it. And because it did come down to that final race, I think if there hadn't been the manipulations of the safety car rules and things like that, perhaps we would have seen Lewis win. But nonetheless, Max is a worthy champion. So before anyone goes, oh, you're all respirators, we're not.
All right, we're not.
No.
Yeah, we hold no harsh feelings against anyone. So yeah.
Yeah, I think we can all agree. It was just
It was a bad
very
situation.
weird. It was a bad situation.
Yeah.
And a really
Yeah.
weird one. And no one knew what was going on. Everyone was really confused. And I don't know if you guys have read the report. The FIA was supposed to.
It was human error was the cited reason for the majority of it.
Yeah. So
I mean, it's obviously a shame, but
it is.
As Toto said, it's done, it's dusted, it's in the past. So moving on to the new season with a whole bunch of new regulations, new cars, new liveries, new drivers,
So fresh.
new team principals. I do feel ever so slightly sorry for Mike Crack. The sheer number of memes I've seen of him on the internet for his name. It's
the memes are
Mike
crazy.
Crack. Mike Crack. What a name.
The memes are going hard with everyone.
They are.
We have no. Yeah, it's crazy.
And then Otmar moving to Alpine. I wasn't expecting that.
I think I wasn't expecting that as well.
Esteban Ocon was not expecting that. Being fired by Otmar to then have Otmar as
he probably was the happiest one to know Otmar was going to be there with him.
I was definitely a bit of, what are you doing here?
When does his contract end?
Otmar's?
No, Esteban. To see if he's safe for next year or not.
I'm pretty sure it ends this year.
2024? Yeah.
2024.
Oh, right.
Yeah, 2024.
He's got a couple years.
Yeah.
So,
quickly to touch on pre-season testing. Obviously, we had one driver down with COVID, Daniel Ricciardo, and there was a lot of worry that several other drivers were also going to come down with COVID. But fortunately, there was only one driver, which obviously it was sad that Seb wasn't there in the race, but it did get Falcon back.
Amazing.
Nico Hülkenberg.
Another unexpected turn of events for the beginning of the season. Like, honestly, the season hasn't even, like, now it started, but last week it was just crazy. Everyone was running around not knowing what to do, what was going to happen.
Literally, like, there wasn't even there hadn't even been a race yet, and so much had happened, and I was like, this is going to put 2021 to shame.
Yeah. I mean,
let's hope so.
We had brakes on fire. We had pieces of cars flying off. We had drivers missing. We had the return of Kevin Magnussen. We had
honestly
slaps. Which I have to say, I'm so happy for us. Like,
so am I.
But in a way, like, he had his chance with us, and I'm just thinking about Fittipaldi. Like,
that was a little sad.
They took a gamble with two inexperienced drivers last year. They needed someone experienced.
I think so.
Definitely. Yeah.
But, like, how would you feel being a reserve driver and then having how would you say that? An old driver, I guess, coming back. And he doesn't have any contracts, and then you have a contract with us. You've been working with them for, like, 2 years now?
Yeah,
I'm happy.
Hard.
I did feel especially bad when I saw that he'd updated his Instagram bio to say Haas F1 driver.
Oh,
I feel like he was not told about Kevin Magnussen until sort of late.
He had it before, I think.
Really?
I think
I know. Nikita Mazepin's bio still says Haas F1 driver.
Really?
He's really.
I think so, unless it's changed, but it was earlier.
I'm checking.
Yeah, obviously.
Might have changed.
I don't think we can really move on without touching on the.
It still says.
It still says.
Formula 1 driver.
Gian
Who's
has,
going to break the news to him?
Oh, Nikita.
yeah, delusional. Obviously, we do have to touch very quickly on the crisis in Ukraine because of that. Obviously, it's a terrible thing that's happening that really could be avoided. It's a shame that the FIA didn't take a harsher stance on it, I think, because everyone else has, every other sporting sort of
a little bit more vocal about it.
And yeah, I mean, it's a shame that because they've got rid of the We Races One thing, they've clamped down, so they've got new regulations on what drivers can and can't wear, which I think is quite sad that they're stifling the drivers' abilities to not only express themselves but express what they believe in and stand for. And obviously we had that beautiful t-shirts and the banner that Seb Vettel, I think, organised. He got all the t-shirts. And we've seen a few helmets that have tributes to things on there. The Mercedes the driver number colours, the yellow and blue of Ukraine. So teams are doing it in a subtle way.
Yes.
The FIA have sort of put as many regulations in place to stop it, it seems.
Well,
which is a shame.
It is kind of hard to I feel for F1 especially to touch on these kinds of things, because in the end it all comes down to money and sponsors and stakeholders, and they are a business, so being related to all these kinds of social issues, it is they could take a toll on the business side. So I think they're very careful with it. It doesn't mean I agree with it. I would like to see more. To see more. The We Races One campaign was a great initiative, but they didn't really do anything about it. Like, they said they were gonna do some stuff. It didn't really.
It seemed very much.
They do a lot, and then now it's gone. Basically gone.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, you know, they're not a charity or an activist. They are a business.
Definitely.
They're a sporting.
But they do have a voice.
Speaking of developments, this is my attempt at a segue. Power units, the Ferrari power unit is just so impressive. And the Mercedes power unit seems to be really struggling. And I'm not sure if it's them struggling with the new fuel, which is a biofuel and like 10%. I think it is. And I mean, I know from speaking to some Alpine mechanics that they've prioritized.
Spill the tea, Maddie.
They've prioritized performance over. And the word has left my brain again. I did this the other day, and I was like, I must apologize, but you know, the non-breakiness, reliability. There we go.
Reliability.
Which we'll get onto this later, but we seem to see a bit of that for Red Bull.
Yep. Today's race has something to say about that.
We have a lot to say about that.
We have a lot to say about that.
And testing this year was shorter, which meant that when we came to practice, cars weren't as developed as teams wanted it to be. They were still essentially testing. I mean,
this race was sort of just like an extra test.
Yeah.
We had some cars, some teams still using the like Fluorovis liquid in free practice, which you don't really see unless they've brought an update. And so that was really interesting. Obviously, with it being the first race of the season, we expected there to be some reliability issues given all the drastic changes. But we had pieces of cars flying off completely unprovoked. We got to a sneak peek inside of the Alpine, and the Aston Martin also decided to start disintegrating, which I thought was crazy because, you know, these are hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of engineering might, probably millions. Yeah. And they're falling apart with a gust of wind.
On the
I was
street.
so worried that we were going to have so many DNFs this race because reliability was just not going to be a thing. And our favorite word, which as it turns out was coined by Mario Andretti, porpoising.
How do you say it?
Porpoising.
Porpoising.
They're just going up and down, aren't they?
Since English is not my first language, I wasn't sure.
So obviously it's named after the porpoise, the animal. But it looked
it was fun to see the footage of the drivers just bouncing around the car.
Yeah, I love that thing Pierre said about I've not nodded that much since I had an interview with Helmut Marko.
A lot of memes about that as well.
Their poor necks, though.
Yeah, they must have been sore after that.
Like, no amount of deep heat or neck massages is going to remove those vibrations from your neck. Like, I got
crazy
neck cramp watching them. It was like,
didn't we all?
But I mean, Mercedes seemed to be really struggling with porpoising the most. And it wasn't really until FP3 that they got on top of it.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, I was so worried going into it.
I think we all were.
Definitely.
I was like, this is a joke, right?
Yeah.
And at the back of my mind, I was like, okay, they've planned this all out and they're going to go and get like P1 today. But it just shows not
I was
quite.
hoping it was just all a big joke.
So I was like, come on, it has to be.
Yeah, I was like, okay, wait, no, sorry. We're going to talk about that in a bit.
But so something that I found quite interesting, because obviously in FP1, Lewis was much lower down than George. He was about half a second slower on his lap, and the porpoising was really, really bad. Turns out his DRS was not opening. There was a fault there.
Oh, yeah.
And because it wasn't opening, it obviously means less speed on straights, for one, but it also meant that the way that the airflow was going over was, because obviously the air is flowing over the car and then it's sort of getting recirculated over the car, and that's what's causing the bouncing up and down and up and down. Because the DRS wasn't opening and they had too much drag, it was amplifying that, so he had even worse porpoising. So it was just like, and obviously the race has been on today, and you could still see it a little bit, but luckily everyone seems to be sort of mostly on top of it.
Yeah.
But I think if teams can't eradicate it completely, it's going to be interesting to see how that affects driver fatigue throughout the season, because it's 23 races this year, isn't it? And the season's also technically shorter because it finishes in November now rather than December. So that could be a factor for the future. And obviously, as I mentioned, testing was shorter, but practice was also shorter, which gave them even less time to get on top of issues.
Yes. This year, the practice session is how long?
I feel like they were half an hour shorter or something like that.
Yeah, it was 60 minutes instead of 90, right?
Yeah.
Something. Okay.
Well, yeah. So just before we obviously move on to...
Yeah, it's 1 hour. It used to be 1 hour now.
Before we move on to the race itself, obviously, I think qualifying was quite interesting because you had Ferrari, Red Bull, and then a Mercedes. But what I was really surprised by, and I think we were all really surprised by, was Bottas was in P6 and Kevin Magnussen was in P7. Like, they'd completely...
Surprise!
Yeah, Valtteri and Lewis are just holding hands, like, you may have separated us, but we're still together.
Damn. I think Bottas was the most surprising for me. I mean, I knew Kevin, he's a good driver. I was expecting him to be a bit behind because, he hadn't had much time to adjust. But that was a very good surprise. I was really glad to see him up there. And Bottas, damn.
Yeah.
I'm not that surprised.
Alfa Romeo and Bottas. Good combination, seems like. Good
I
surprise
was
as well.
more like expecting him to be like P10 between P8 and P10. Like P5 was a good surprise.
Amazing.
Yeah. And obviously, a massive change is the tyre regulations going from qualifying into the race day. It used to be that the top 10 had to race on the tyres that they qualified on. And everyone else got free choice to sort of spice things up a bit. But obviously now there is no rule for that. Everyone gets free choice. So it was really interesting to see that everyone had gone for either brand new softs or scrubbed softs, apart from the McLarens who were on mediums.
And that didn't work out.
No. Yeah, didn't work out is one way of putting it. But moving on to the race, I was so excited to hear its lights out and away we go.
Oh my goodness. Excited. And it wasn't even like the lights were waiting for ages. Like it was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 gone. I was like, oh, we've started already.
Could not wait.
It all happened so quickly.
And there was
the longest 3 months ever. And this was the shortest day of my life. It all went by so fast.
Yeah.
Race.
Honestly, I was like, all this for that? Whoa. Done.
The lap 1 shenanigans, there were so many. I mean, Valtteri dropped from P6 to P14, which was like, what happened there? Turns out he just didn't get off the line very far. Lewis and Kevin Magnussen, amazing starts, overtook Perez. I was like, oh, come on. Yeah, I screamed at the TV.
I think he definitely had the best start out of like the top 10.
No, I'd say Charles's start was pretty much perfect, and Carlos got a really good start, but obviously just didn't get round Verstappen in the corner.
Yep.
Having Magnussen as well. I was like, that's a good start.
Yeah.
Another great start.
And it was really the front three of Leclerc, Verstappen, Sainz sort of drove away. I mean, Hamilton sort of kept just about within DRS distance, I think, of Sainz for the first few laps. But then it was sort of like group one and a half, because Alex Albon and everyone behind him, there were like 4, 5 cars wide on the track. It was one massive group, whereas everyone else in front was going out like a train.
It looked like they were just going so slowly, like something was like,
I
was like, what's going on there?
I was like, I don't remember F1 cars being that slow.
They looked so slow.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was.
I mean, obviously, we mentioned McLaren was not great for them at the start. The medium tyres obviously not
struggling for grip.
Yeah, not as grippy, but both drivers went off on the first lap on the start. Obviously, Lando was pushed off track by Stroll, which was a racing incident. And Daniel went off track to avoid colliding with the mess that was in front of him.
Also because Mick was in front of him and there was a collision there, right? With Ocon?
Between Ocon and Mick. And the best part was that when they were talking about it, for the British commentators, when they were talking about it, it was Ocon versus Michael Schumacher. And I was like,
really?
There is something ever so slightly wrong here. It did later
directing a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's the first race of the season, but they got so many drivers mixed up. It was.
They also are they. You know, it's like Guan Yu Zhou. Have they switched his name around? Is that like a Japanese thing? I don't know.
Chinese.
Chinese.
Yuki's Japanese. So the correct way to say his name is Zhou Guanyu. If you're familiar with him, it's just Zhou. But the correct way to say his name is Zhou Guanyu. And he's the first Chinese F1 driver.
Chinese,
amazing.
That's the one.
Thanks for that very detailed information, Maddie.
You're welcome. But yeah, and then later on, like still on lap 1, I think it was, or maybe it was a few laps later, Ocon and Michael Schumacher had another altercation. Mick was ahead of him, and I'm not sure if it was Ocon's wheel or his wing, but he touched into Mick's rear right, and he just completely spun him round, which
I
think that
it was
what he got the
his
5-second
front left wheel,
Yeah.
I think. Wheel to wheel.
But yeah, I mean, so turn 1 seemed to be the place for mistakes, it seemed. So we saw Kevin Magnussen locking up, and he lost a place to Perez, and then I think it was a lap or 2 laps later when he did the exact same mistake, and Russell got through.
And
obviously later we saw so many drivers locking up there. It just seemed to be the place to make mistakes this race.
Yeah.
Alex and Bottas had a good battle. I that's something that I saw, and I was like, it's nice seeing like Alex back. Yeah, and it's like he's racing against people that maybe he obviously wouldn't have raced back when he was in Red Bull. Oh no, he would have, but like,
I mean, you're comparing Bottas, and Bottas was in the Mercedes at the time. But I mean, I am of the opinion that a different driver deserved the second Williams seat to Alex Albon.
Who do you think?
Nick de
We know who
Vries
she
or
thinks.
Oscar Piastri.
We know.
Me too.
I think if it wasn't Nick, it should have been Oscar Piastri, because I
feel like a lot of people will agree with you on that one.
Yeah.
Oscar Piastri coming up to F1, not coming up to F1 is probably very unfair.
Yeah, I mean, he won the championship in
Yes.
his rookie year, and Zhou Guanyu had been racing there in F2 for several years and never won the championship. So I believe that perhaps that seat should have gone to Oscar, if not the Williams seat. But at the end of the day, cash is king. So
Cash is king.
And I'm actually thinking cash is king about Latifi, because we saw what Alex could do in the Williams, because we saw last year that George had a good did good, but like Latifi did good too. But this year, like the first race, Alex did better, and like Latifi
way better.
And I would argue that over the last season, George did better than Latifi overall.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, overall, but like Latifi wasn't that far behind. I think he scored points, right?
He did score points.
Yes,
but
I was like, nah.
That was a
not
race.
Good enough.
Yeah, he only scored points the once, whereas George scored them twice.
Yeah. So in a way, why is
he was also
money?
Yeah, and Latifi was consistently outperformed in qualifying, and for I'd say 90% of the races, he was also outperformed. So, it is what it is. At the end of the day, all the teams are businesses, and they do need cash flow. But
Do you think Alex is gonna outperform Latifi this year?
Yes,
for sure.
I think so as well.
Which is annoying, because
it is.
If he didn't outperform him, then there'd be no point in keeping him on for longer. And I personally am of the opinion that I don't think he deserves that seat, and I will stand by that opinion.
Would you rather have Alex or Latifi in that seat?
Latifi.
Really?
Okay. So Alex, because with how he did this race, I think
he does have the experience of working on a top team. So I feel
they race me so hard. like that's their job. Get over yourself.
Yes. Yeah, okay. He has his flaws. He's not my favorite. But I was going through an interview that Just Capito did, and they asked him about Alex, and one of his reasons for getting him and not Oscar or Nick de Vries was that he had experience with Red Bull, which is in the end a really good
I'm sorry, how many championships has Alex Albon won?
Well, Let's
how many
rephrase that.
championships
'cause-
has Nick De Vries won? He's won both Formula E and the Formula 2 championship. So, you know.
Yes.
He also has
I'm
Mercedes
just
backing,
saying.
Yeah, but who's got
I think
more
Maddie's very, very passionate. for
I'm
this.
saying
Can
what
you
Just
tell?
Capita said. I'm not saying I agree with him.
Oh no! I'm
Here we go.
I'm not like angry anymore. I just
Mhm.
I also would like Nick De Vries on that seat, Maddie. I agree with you. Don't worry.
thank you.
I do. We love Nick De Vries in here, I think.
I like him because he's small.
He is
Makes me feel
really
good.
For
small.
context, Anna is like 5 foot tall.
Yeah.
She makes
He
Yuki
thinks he is
Tsunoda look
small.
tall.
hmm And that's a rare occasion, you know. No one can make Yuki look tall.
She is tiny. She
Just
likes
a skill.
Oh.
Getting back on track to turn 1.
Yeah.
We obviously mentioned Kevin Magnussen locking up there. I think Lewis Hamilton locked up there a couple of times when his tires were cold. Hulkenberg locked up there when trying to make a move on Mick, which meant that he actually lost the place because he was like side by side with Mick, but also lost a place to Stroll. And I'm not sure if you guys are aware of the new braking and turning mechanics that are going on. So I'm not sure what's changed, but essentially they've been having to brake and downshift, then put the steering lock on to turn, then remove the steering lock and then get on the throttle. Because
Interesting.
that's what the commentators were talking about. They were like, yeah,
Wow.
I think it's something about the way that the wheels are set up is that you can't like put power through them and you can't really brake when turning with them for some reason, because like they just don't like that for some reason. But I thought that's quite interesting because the tires are a whole thing. But what we did see is that cars following each other massively improved. They were like little trains.
Yes. I noticed that as well. And I was like,
they got right up
going
to
on?
those gearboxes.
Yeah.
They were like,
It's like all this technology is working.
Yeah.
You know?
So, I mean, do we like the fact that the new regulations and everything regarding the aero? Do we think the cars are pretty? Obviously, it works, but do we like it?
I do feel like the racing was definitely closer. Like, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but the battle between Charles and Verstappen, it went on for 3 or 4 laps, which is very surprising, and they were switching places very often. So I do feel like these new regulations are working.
I'd love to know,
it is very exciting.
I'd love to know what the drivers think of it, you know, like if there's anything that they like and don't like about it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously
maybe
DRS,
if we just call Charles, he'll let us know.
I'd say DRS is even more powerful now.
Yeah.
It looks massively more powerful than it was previously.
Yes.
Usually you take like 2 or 3 laps of DRSing to get fully up the back of each other to then be able to overtake. Whereas because they can follow so much now, it seems like the DRS is just that much more powerful. And I know they're currently they're trying to move away from DRS. You know what else they're also trying to move away from? Tire blankets.
Yes, I was going to say that.
Like the temperature dropped massively because, like the commentator said, like the front wheels were at 100 degrees and the rear wing was at 80, and now it's 70 for all of them, which is why they were so slippery at the exit of the exit.
Yeah, so that's another regulation. They've reduced the tire blanket temperature, which, as Jane said, makes them more slippery and obviously colder, but they are moving to get away from tire blankets altogether, so they'll just have ambient temperature tires, which I think is going to mean a lot of crashing in turn 1 or going off track.
God.
Or it means Pirelli have to develop a better tire.
There was a driver, I
Lewis,
can't remember which one it was, who was like heating up their tires while racing.
Yeah, there was so much weaving going on, which you
like during racing
see on the formation lap or behind the safety car, which was crazy. And obviously that then messes up with aero and things because, the car's not designed to weave like that. So it was really, it was just like one big massive test, this race was. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Another new thing, well, I say new, we saw it slightly last season, but it was more prevalent this season, is the helmet cam. Because we got to watch...
there was more than one this time, weren't there?
There was, yeah. We got the view from Zhao Guanyu's helmet, watching Bottas overtake Mick. And it's crazy how little they actually see, especially with the new 18-inch wheels and the wheel covers. Like their vision's reduced massively. And I know the what are they called? The grid markers. The yellow grid marker was extended out to 4 meters so that the drivers
they are more apart now.
But do we like the helmet cam?
I do like it.
Do. I like it for like a little bit. Like it's cool.
I don't want to watch the entire race.
I liked
it's
the
good
little clips of it.
Yeah, I feel like it gives a very cool new perspective to viewers.
I like seeing their little noses in the bottom of the corner of the screen.
See, I wasn't able to spot that when you said it.
Charles Leclerc, you have the most poreless nose I think I've ever seen. Drop the skincare routine.
Charles, drop the skincare routine.
The camera cam is like you get more of how they feel about the vibration that you can't really see on the normal cameras. But like in a way, I feel like we're a bit like in the movie Rush.
Yeah,
it doesn't feel real. It's a bit awkward, but I guess we're gonna get used to it.
Yes.
Yeah, and then obviously going into the next sort of, so that's just what we've had in laps 1 to 10.
1 to 10.
Obviously the pit window opened up. Pirelli were predicting, I think, because obviously most people started on the soft, they were predicting that the fastest race would be soft for 13, 14 laps minimum. I think it was like 13 to 23 would be the pit window to a medium tire. And then I think it was like lap 37 to 43 or something like that would be when they'd then swap from the medium back onto the soft. Spoiler alert, this did not happen. Because Lewis comes into the pit.
He really strikes again.
Yeah. Lewis comes into the pits on lap 12 to put the hards on, which was like, okay, A, you've pitted earlier than everyone was expecting, and B, put the hards really on, which was so hard because Pirelli brought some really conservative tires. The softest tire was in the middle of the full tire spectrum, excluding inters and wets. So the hardest tire was really like the hardest one that they could bring. And it was so slow. And one of my favorite parts was Alonso pitted on the same lap as Lewis because he was asked by the pit wall how his tires were, and his one-word response was bad.
Just bad.
I was like, I feel that. But so yeah, obviously the original pit predictions by Pirelli were way wrong because we ended up having 3 stops. But I mean, you do have to wonder if they would have been more accurate with that pit prediction if we hadn't had the late safety car, which we'll get onto in a moment. But obviously tire temps are lower this year, but also tires are heavier. So this is also something that's going to be quite interesting because the stops that we were used to last season, they were like very sort of like high 1 seconds to low 2 seconds, but it seemed like the average was late 2 seconds to early 3 seconds, sort of. That seemed to be what most people were doing because obviously it's more strain on the pit crew, and the cars are so much heavier as well. So we saw Lando Norris's McLaren rocking on the rear jack, which makes it you need the car to be as still as possible to put the tires on. So that made his stop even slower. In pre-season testing, we saw a few jacks failing and the cars being dropped. because the car is obviously that much heavier. And I know they were talking about it last season about fatigue amongst the pit crews and the mechanics having triple headers, but with the tires being and the cars being so much heavier, we've got a few triple headers and we've got more races crammed into a shorter period of time. I'm actually quite worried that the teams are going to struggle, especially towards the end of the season or on that triple header, like on that last race. The mechanics are going to be hurting, they're going to be tired, they're not going to be as focused. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays into,
because like everyone, I feel like working in F1, it seems so like glamorized and like, oh my god, it's the best job ever. Like my dad's friend, who was a McLaren mechanic, and like he couldn't physically or mentally do it anymore, so he stopped last season. And it's like that just shows how like much pressure, because like obviously like it's a team sport, so like there's so much pressure not on just the driver but on the like whole team as well. And it's like
and they're all competing.
It is definitely
the fastest pit stop, because I mean we saw Max had some pit stops that were slower than Charles's, and that really played into their race. But yeah, so it's going to be interesting. I mean, because Verstappen was put down quite heavy on his third pit stop, which is what caused his steering issues. Obviously that wasn't the only problem that he had, but you know, we'll get into that a bit later. But what I found so interesting was Hulkenberg was told his car was too hot to pit.
There was a couple of cooling issues with a couple of cars. Also McLaren was having cooling issues.
Is how much cars overheated on during preseason testing. I'm actually not surprised that they still have like cooling issues and stuff like that.
And Bahrain wasn't even as hot as it usually is, which means that in the middle of summer, because Silverstone gets to be absolutely boiling, how are the cars going to cope with the heat? Because some teams had brakes overheating, some teams had entire cars overheating, other teams had engines overheating, and the fuel's getting hot. That was terrifying. But I thought that the Red Bull strategy for the first pit was an absolute masterclass.
Because that was good.
Verstappen was like 5-6 seconds behind Leclerc, came in for a pit. Leclerc stayed out for one more lap, or might have been two, but that large gap came down to 0.3 seconds post Charles's pit, and that's when we then got the amazing lap 17 and lap 18 racing, where Max got Charles into turn one, and then Charles got Max at the next DRS area, and then they stayed like that until the next lap when it happened again. And I was like
so stressed. I was like, as a McLaren fan right now, I've never wanted a Ferrari to win so bad. You know, I was like, come on.
We're not
definitely
we're not anti Verstappen.
We're anti Christian Horner.
Yes. So we're more anti Christian Horner than we're anti.
He's not the most liked person here. He's not welcome.
We don't mind Max Verstappen. We just don't like Christian Horner.
But good racing, Verstappen and Leclerc.
That was such good racing.
I did think at one point there was gonna be it was just an incident moment, but luckily they kept it aggressive but clean, which was good to see.
Charles is such a clean racer. He has example Silverstone last year. Lewis
also last year
versus Verstappen.
Was it
Lewis
Austria
versus Charles
last year when Charles took Pierre out of the race and then almost took Kimi out later on because he was being unhinged.
Yes, good example to counteract my example.
Good memory.
But I do feel like on average, he's a clean racer.
I feel like now that Verstappen has the world championship, he's like more he doesn't want to make the same mistakes, and he's not fighting. I mean, he's fighting for the world championship, but more calm, I guess. Like,
oh, I mean,
he's gonna be hard. I feel like he's gonna be hard to work with. Like,
did
Yeah.
you hear his radio messages? He
yeah, I
had a
did.
temper tantrum.
In a way, like
honestly,
last year, if what happened was last year, he would have ran into him, and there would have been an accident.
And we
For
would have
sure.
had 2 safety cars.
I know what you mean.
Yeah,
Because
I do
last
think
year,
his
like,
driving's matured.
overtake, and they had multiple accidents, and now he
Yeah.
lasted 3 laps overtaking and stuff like that, and fighting for position without an accident, without an incident.
I do think part of that wasn't necessarily him being more mature in his approach. I do think part of that was the new track limits rule, which everyone's been saying for a while. Why not make the track limits, the 2 white lines on the limits of the track?
Mm-hmm.
So I do think, because obviously that's how he lost the Bahrain Grand Prix last year to Lewis, was because he overtook outside the track limits.
Oh,
I
yeah,
think part of that was playing on his mind. We mentioned earlier the graphics, because some people like them, other people don't. There have been there have not only been commentator mix-ups between drivers, we also had Kevin Magnussen and Pierre Gasly fighting earlier, and the graphics came up Kevin Magnussen versus Kevin Magnussen, which
Really?
I loved for him. Oh, it was hilarious. I was like, definitely. And also in quali we had like 5 people with purple sector 1s, so I don't know what was going on there. I think it's a bit buggy at the moment. I personally don't like the new graphics. What do you guys think?
Like, we're talking about design and visuals, right?
Yeah.
the new.
I do feel they look good.
They look
from
quite
a graphic
sleek.
designing perspective.
Yeah.
They are a bit more flashy than the last
seem really
years.
like shiny and like
and it makes them
Material
hard to read sometimes.
Yeah, because the driver numbers for Mercedes almost impossible to read.
Yes, all the numbers. I hate that the drivers do not have a team color anymore.
Yeah.
They only have their numbers, and sometimes it's like, wait, there's like 10 drivers with numbers in white. So I don't know. It's just your mind has to think a bit more about it.
And because it's hard to read.
Yeah, and because the numbers are done in the font that the teams use, obviously Mercedes just have that outline and it's really thin.
Yeah, I was going to say.
That's why it's really difficult to read it. I'm also annoyed that they changed the tires, because it used to be that like mini tire on the side, or like it would have the paint and then the one in the middle. But now it's the only one that's barely legible is the hard, because it's white. Like I felt like specifically the soft really blended in, even though it was red on black. It just seemed to blend in. And I'm not sure if you've checked out the F1 app, where the drivers do still have their driver colors alongside them. The Williams color is different, and it's now like the love child between Alpine and Mercedes. If you're like half awake and you're looking at the colors, all the blues merge into one. All of them. Yeah. The reds merge into one as well. I'm struggling.
Someone took to their graphic designer.
It's better than last year.
Yeah, can Alpine be pink, please? I miss having the pink icon. I think the pink icon really brightened it up for the color collection.
I'm so mad that like they took away the red from the French flag and changed it to pink.
I think it's going to be there on the next livery, isn't it?
I think the pink livery is supposed to run only for Bahrain.
It's for Bahrain and Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
Saudi.
But like on the blue livery, the red because last year there was the French flag, like the lines, and
not dissimilar to the not Russian Haas.
Yeah, and the red is for pink, so I'm kind of mad.
Well, I guess it's time to turn the French flag into blue, white, and pink. And I guess that's the only thing you can really do with that, Jane. Within those sort of laps at turn 1 again, we had Carlos Sainz overtaking Alex Albon, and Alex Albon nearly taking him out, despite it being like a blue flagged situation. And I think that was just the case of like the way that he turned into that corner. But at the same time, it was like, really? Like, calm down.
Carlos was so calm.
Carlos was mad as well. He was like, what the F is this guy doing? Like,
yes.
What's going on in here?
Yeah.
But I mean, it must be annoying for a lapped car to take you out. So
Max
I feel
Verstappen
like I
could tell you
understand that.
about that.
Mm-hmm.
The infamous.
We don't talk about that one.
We don't talk about Bruno. We spend too much time on TikTok.
Back to the race.
Back to the race.
The
race really settled down then. It seemed like it was very much processional until Red Bull stopped both their drivers for a third stop. And it was like they then forced Ferrari to react. Lewis had come in and taken off the hards and put mediums on. I feel like Lewis did 4 stops in the race, didn't he?
Yeah, he reacted to
soft to hard to medium to soft. So that was double the stops that Pirelli were.
Yeah, he also wasn't happy with the strategy. He mentioned it was too early to pit. But
I feel like at the same time, George was left out way too long. Given that the hards just weren't working, because they were dropping. Mercedes were already like half a second to a second per lap slower than Ferrari and Red Bull, given all the issues. But with the hards on, they dropped back way more. They were almost 2 seconds slower per lap. So, and I have an amazing quote from Toto on that, which we'll get into in the end, because it is truly amazing and deserves its own moment. Obviously they pushed everyone to sort of take that third stop, and then was it turn 2 or turn 4?
4.
Pierre Gasly loses power, and he doesn't just lose power, his engine explodes. It was
on fire. And like the German commentator said, the German commentators, right? Sometimes I don't know what they're thinking, but they were like, "Oh yeah, in an Alpha barbecue." They think they're funny, but I mean, it was he was on fire.
Well, he wasn't on fire. His car was on fire.
Well,
but it was a little bit like PTSD-ish of Roman.
Honestly, I was like
flashbacks.
You can just like recognize.
Yeah.
You can just like recognize exactly where it is, and then the shot that got me was the
slow-mo of him getting out the car.
The slow-mo of him jumping out with the fire in the background. I was like,
yeah, that really got me as well.
Yeah.
Which, of course, it turned to a virtual safety car, and then like less than half a lap later, it was a full-on safety car.
Yeah, this brought back memories.
More flashbacks.
More PTSD.
More PTSD.
I mean, I have to say, obviously last year, the Aston Martin safety car and medical car were just 10 times sexier than the Mercedes, because it was that really bright red. But this year, it's a Mercedes that's like a deeper, glossier red that I'd say almost matches the Ferrari red.
It is.
But it looks kind of so pretty under the lights. Mercedes really sort of stepped up the sexiness of their safety car, because that is obviously what's important, is the safety car being sexy.
It has to be sexy now. The bar is really high now.
Aston Martin
have to match every year.
I have sat in that Aston Martin safety car, just like.
Have you?
Yeah, they had it at the Longines Global's Champions Tour
Mhm.
in London. For all the non-horsey people out there, that's like the Formula One of show jumping, because they literally
Non-horsey.
go from country to country like they do in F1. But yeah, and Aston Martin sponsor a class there. They had the medical car and the safety car there. So
Sexy cars.
very sexy. And turns out that the sales rep that they'd sent there, because obviously they're also there to like sell cars, had never watched Formula One. And I was like,
No way.
what?
What are you doing there?
It's crazy.
Yeah. And they had one of the cars in the arena and like 5 horses nearly kicked it. And you're thinking, like, that's going to leave a dent. That's not something that's going to buff out. That's like 100 grand, more than 100 grand.
That's an expensive kick.
Yeah.
That's more expensive than my knee.
Yeah.
You
Anyway,
wouldn't want
Yeah.
that.
We're not
The
here to
flashbacks to the
we're here to
unlapped
talk
cars.
about our trauma.
Yeah,
there were
the
6
the
cars
unlapped cars.
unlapping, which
Mhm.
there were either 5 or 6 cars that unlapped themselves at Abu Dhabi
Mhm.
2021.
Did you
The
hear
race that
Maddie?
shall not be
We
named.
don't talk about Broom.
Did you hear Ted Kravis was there like, I don't want to talk about it, I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
He
Really?
said it. And I was like, yeah.
Yeah,
was like,
I
Ted was
feel
like-
you.
Ted was like, I'm not going to discuss it. I'm not going to
Yeah.
discuss it.
He was
Insert
like,
that clip
moving
of
on.
Ted, please.
I was sat there snuggled up in my blanket, which has sleeves. Like,
You're a
protect me.
mood, Maddie.
I literally was sat there, Mercedes cap on, blanket with arms, and popcorn. Like,
You're all of us.
Carla, it actually makes me sad that you don't get Ted Kravis.
I know.
I know, right?
Like, I
Everyone
don't
does
think I'd
get
go.
him.
Yeah. So
Even the
for the ones that
Americans get
don't know,
him.
I live in Germany and I can only watch F1 on German Sky F1.
Which means you have to deal
So-
with Ralph Schumacher.
Yeah, we get a lot of Schumi, this race was a lot of Hulkenberg, which was fun. But we also get a lot of Helmut Marko opinions and a
our
lot
favorite.
of my favorite person. But I also do get a lot of Toto Wolff, which is fun.
That's good.
But I don't get Ted Kravitz.
I will say, if you're in the UK and you don't have Sky, you can watch the highlights, unless it's Silverstone, when you get the live race on Channel 4. And their presenters are Mark Webber and David Coulthard. So you get a scary amount of Red Bull content. They're always talking to Christian Horner, obviously being ex-drivers for the team. But it's like, oh, for once, I want to talk
A
to
little
someone
bit
else.
one-sided, maybe.
Yeah, and I feel like with the Red Bull commentators, there is more of a
Basically.
bias towards Red Bull.
Of course.
I was going to say with Sky you don't get it that much, but obviously if you've watched Drive to Survive season 4, Karun Chandok famously says, "I've gone all in on Red Bull," which was literally traumatizing. But we'll save our thoughts and opinions from Drive to Survive for a different episode, because we all have a lot to say about
That's a
that.
full episode.
That is a series right there.
It is a full series.
It's a full-on series. Lap 48, we're behind the safety car. Max Verstappen is complaining over the radio constantly about his steering, and the team are going, "We don't know what to tell you. It's not a problem that's going to get fixed. It's not something we can fix, but it doesn't look like it's going to get worse." Spoiler alert.
They must get so
It got
scared of
worse.
him when he jumps out of that car.
Well, here's the thing. I've heard he's actually quite down to earth and respectable in person.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I know. I'm trying not
Shows
to
how fake
surprise.
social media is.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess. I mean, we know that he takes after his father in the sense that he gets very angry, very easily. He
Same.
boils up.
Emotions.
Yeah, emotions run high. But when he's chill, he seems to be quite chill off the track. But
Mhm.
lap 49, safety car is ending. Most of the grids are now on soft. After ducking into the pits, Mick Schumacher is not. He's currently running in the points. He's on mediums. Carla's looking at me
very disappointed.
Yeah,
I am very disappointed.
I did predict
so
it
close. Though. You did, which is annoying because you're almost always right, and I hate it because when you say something that I don't like, it's like, well, she's probably right. Shumi not being in the points.
Well, because he was on.
I didn't get why he did not go into the pits.
I think it was about that position. I think he was willing to gamble it. For track position because it took them several laps to get Pierre's car into a safer space because they were scared about touching it because they obviously didn't know if it was going to electrocute them or anything. Luckily, the marshals put the fire up really quickly, but yeah, there was apprehension about moving the car. So I think he was hoping that by the time that the safety car went out, people's tires would be cooler, especially after all the unlapped cars then rejoined the back of the pack as they're supposed to. Michael Massey. And so it was another because he was running into points. There's going to be so many moments where you can just put "We don't talk about Bruno" in.
Please do.
Some of the marshals just like I respect them so much, but they just really make me laugh. Like because they're so like
you saw his butt crack on TV.
Yeah, I saw that.
Poor guy.
Amazing. Running. They try to be as quick as they can. They're like try to be as fast, and obviously they need to be quick, but like honestly, they make me laugh so much.
Marshals are the best. They need more recognition.
They do.
Yeah.
They save
80%
of marshals.
Yeah, we love
marshals out there.
Yeah,
you guys deserve a lot. So the safety car comes to the pits, and then it's relatively processional up front. There's not much moving around. There's a bit of moving around at the back half of the grid. Obviously, Mick drops down because he's on worn mediums rather than new softs. Told you so, Carla. And then it stays like that up until lap 54 when Verstappen he loses engine power and his steering problem gets worse, even though the team are like, no, it's fine. It was not fine. And he dropped back to like P13, and then they were like, just come into the pits, we're going to retire the car.
He barely came into the pits.
Yeah,
he was struggling.
Barely made it.
And it's nice to see every driver finish the race, but my God, I was so happy as a Mercedes fan because I was like, that's more points for the team. And then lo and behold, on lap 57 at turn 1, Perez, his engine cuts out and he performs a very beautiful pirouette right on the apex.
Sad Checo doing ballet.
Mercedes, like Lewis and George, avoid him, like,
yes. The reaction times of Lewis because Lewis was right behind him.
Yeah, he was trying to.
That was hat off to them, and then all of a sudden Hamilton's on the podium. I was so happy.
So I was like,
it was very exciting.
Worried. Yeah,
but what I think
it all came down to the last 2 laps, which
it's not over till that lady sings.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if someone told me that was going to be the podium, I would have been like, no,
impossible.
Given where
but then look
in pre-season testing and practice and qualifying coming. I mean, they were running 5th and 7th up until George's lap time got removed, and so he got his Q9.
Do you think this is what Ted Kravis was talking about yesterday? Is he still called Mr. Saturday or not? Because Ted Kravis is like, okay, that's over.
I don't think he can't do Saturday anymore. I don't think.
Maybe we can wait another race and see.
Yeah,
because I mean, considering he's like he changed teams and all, he didn't do that bad, I guess.
Oh yeah, there's no denying he had a solid performance for his first outing, especially given where Mercedes are compared to where they want to be. And it was
very solid.
He overcooked it going into turn 1 and went off track, and obviously you're not allowed to go off track, and so that's why his lap time got deleted. But he did the one thing that, and I love Valtteri Bottas, I really do, but there's one thing he was never really good at, but he proved himself today. I'm not sure if it's being in a new team, he's more energized or something like that, but he dropped through the field from P6 to P14 and fought his way all the way back up, and then pitted and fought his way back up again. But that's something that we didn't really see him doing in the Mercedes, specifically at the Sakir Grand Prix. Bottas dropped back and then just couldn't seem to fight his way forward, whereas George fought all the way up to the front, dropped back due to problems that weren't his own fault, fought all the way back and then had obviously the puncture again, and then started fighting back through the grid again. So I mean, I know George is talented. I think once the car is better, he'll be better.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think that's because in Mercedes, Bottas knew he was like the second driver. So I think it was more like, why fighting to the top when I know like they don't really. Because I mean, maybe it's less appreciated, but like in Alfa Romeo, he wants to show that was not just the car. He is a good driver, and he wants to be like the person who brings more points and more glory to Alfa Romeo, I guess.
I mean, I do think part of it is being in a new team. I mean, he was, because in Williams, he was so impressive. Over the season break, I've been going back through the previous seasons and binge watching them, having them on in the background whilst working.
Love that.
I got to do something to get through winter break. And he was such a vibrant talent, and he was really impressive in his first few years at Mercedes. And then he did just seem to sort of lose some of his shine in the last few seasons. And as he has said in interviews, you know, it's really difficult being Lewis Hamilton's teammate because Lewis is so good. And Nico Rosberg knew that he didn't have it in him to come back and win another championship, because it was so difficult being Lewis's teammate and it took everything out of him. So, you know, I do think that part of it wasn't, Mercedes definitely had a 1 and a 2, just like Red Bull have a 1 and a 2. But I don't think that it was entirely intentional, the way that they treated Bottas. I do think some of it was just his mentally he just couldn't keep up with it. But it's good to see him super invigorated and vibrant again.
Yes.
And like you said, he was probably waiting for the Valtteri, it's James.
Yeah, I did. I put this into the group chat when Lewis first pitted and went onto the hards and was behind Bottas. I was like, you know what would be funny right now? He's gone to a different team. I'd have loved it if James went over to the Alfa Romeo pit bull.
Hey,
let me just
Valtteri.
Who's back?
Valtteri, it's James.
back.
That would have been funny.
But yeah, I was surprised because obviously Red Bull poached a bunch of Mercedes engine mechanics. And they obviously developed a very fast engine. But 3 of their 4 engines gave up.
Yeah.
On the first race.
Some issues there now, Red Bull.
And if that continues to happen, engine penalties.
But Valtteri knows about them.
Certainly does. He can give them a lesson or 2. But yeah, I mean, anyone who knows me knows that I'm not particularly a Ferrari fan. I've never really been a Ferrari fan, even though you say you're not a Ferrari fan. Everyone's a Ferrari fan. I'm
a Ferrari fan. Yes, we are.
Everybody is a Ferrari fan.
I'm not. I mean, I say that, but it was quite nice to see Ferrari back on the.
Yeah.
It was. It really was.
I just wonder if that'll stick. Like, it will be Ferrari domination here.
If they don't, until Mercedes get their stuff sorted out, and so long as Red Bull continue to have issues with reliability, which fingers crossed they do. You can edit that out if you think that's a bit controversial. If Ferrari are consistent and they don't have reliability issues, then I think we will continue. I think they are the team to beat this season.
Yes.
Which it's.
I mean, Charles had a perfect weekend.
He did.
He took all of it.
Oh my God. What's going to happen at Monaco?
Fastest lap. We don't want to jinx Monaco. like you said, I'm not the biggest Ferrari fan, but it would be really cool to see a Monegasque driver win in Monaco.
No, the funniest
Especially
thing
because
is
he
going to
hasn't
be him.
finished there.
No, that's the
No,
funny
let
thing.
me rephrase that. Let me rephrase that.
He's going to win like every race apart from that one.
He's going to DNF or DNS in Monaco.
Oh
again.
my god.
And I'm going to laugh.
We love you, Charles.
We love you.
Like Lewis hasn't really had that much bad luck at Silverstone. And because I mean, some drivers have bad luck at their races, and it is like the home race curse.
Sergio
But
Perez.
no one has as much bad luck as Charles Leclerc at his home race.
He
This
never,
is just uncanny
F1,
to see
It's
that.
tradition. He has to go wrong.
even in F2, he never got like.
I thought he finished at least one race in F2. Did he not?
No, he didn't start it. I think. I remember.
That's just
That is quite funny.
You
impossible.
might as well just go on holiday during that weekend.
Yeah,
The
like
time off.
it's a bit busy in his hometown. He should just,
Yeah.
go on holiday somewhere.
Tourists.
He's
Yeah.
cursed. Let's
It is
see
highly
if
entertaining.
he can break the curse this season.
As
No one
much
can
as,
break
as
the
much as we're all for Ferrari being better, I really hope that he doesn't, because it's one of the highlights of the season for me. Is Charles'
Oh,
home race car.
Maddie's got some strong opinions.
And it's just
Maddie, you cannot be happy from other people's misery.
He was retired on both race in Formula
I'm
2.
Christian Horner.
I
He
go
retired. He retired on Friday and Saturday, or Sunday. Wait, I don't know. Like there's 2 races in Formula 2, and he retired on both races at Monaco.
That's just sad.
It's not
So
sad.
sad.
It's sad
My
for
heart
him,
goes out to him.
but it's
Funny for you, no?
Like,
What if that was
It's bad.
Lewis at Silverstone every week, every year, Maddie? How would you feel?
I would cry.
Mhm.
I would cry. And like
Empathy,
I'm not really
Maddie.
a Ferrari fan, so for me it's just funny.
Well,
But it's
Yeah.
not.
It's just entertaining, like because he was
Yeah.
going to start on pole because he decked
It's
it.
not to us. It's not.
No, my favorite Charles Leclerc moment was in F2, and on the podium they put the French flag above him and they played the French national anthem, and he got so offended, which is understandable because he's not French, he's Monegasque.
he hates being called French.
My favorite part though is that
Leclerc is literally, I'm French.
Arthur Leclerc is like he'll call himself French just in part.
Yeah.
Because it's so
He's like,
tired
you're
of
French.
Yeah.
his injuries.
Wait, I'm curious.
About powertrains. Mercedes works well, obviously P3 and P4, which I reckon they'd have finished P6 and P5 and P6 if Red Bull had both finished. But the bottom 6 cars that finished were Mercedes engined, which was shocking. I mean, obviously we've touched on the fact that the Ferrari engine is so superior because you have Haas and Alfa Romeo in the points.
Bit suspicious.
Don't
If you
be
ask me.
suspicious, don't be suspicious.
No, but it is definitely superior.
Yeah,
They
but it's
got full. They got 1-2 podium, and they were excited, but not that excited. Like they were just waiting for it.
Yeah, like they knew it was going to happen.
Yeah, they were not that happy and like surprised or
Suspicious, I'm telling you.
yeah.
I'm just wondering.
Betting on Alpine or maybe Aston Martin's suing them or just taking some action.
No, Christian Horner.
Yeah,
He's going to be the first one.
Yeah.
But
He
now he's got
protests everything.
to complain about. Who's he going to complain about first? He's got so many problems now because now he's got multiple to complain about.
He only had to take care for like Mercedes, but now he has Mercedes and Ferrari. He's not going to.
I could see him complaining about Haas and Alfa Romeo as well, being so far up the grid.
Yeah.
I'd love to see that.
They purchased.
Let's see what he comes up with. I think it's going to be
versus
interesting to
Christian, put them
see
in a
which
race
great
together.
idea he has now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think, I'm not sure if it's, because obviously there's the new engine regulation, which means that there's like no massive upgrade for engines until 2025. So Mercedes client teams could be in a bit of a problem spot because they were so much slower. And I'm not sure if it's just because it's a new type of fuel, maybe it's not working very well with those, and the Ferrari might be working really well because the Sky Pundits,
they keep those cars going.
Yeah, Crofty is such a mechanic.
Those pit stops.
Yeah, Crofty and Brundle were talking about the fact that they'd seen sort of the inside of the Mercedes and it was a work of art because it, like they said, I reckon it's just a few aero issues that Mercedes have got to work through, but like the interior of it seemed to be like absolutely beautiful was a word that was used to describe it. So I'm not sure if it's just the way that the engine is reacting to the fuel, but there is definitely an issue there with that. Yeah, but it was a very exciting race to the last.
It was. I approved.
Obviously,
I think this season is going to be exciting.
Yes.
I mean,
everything is just new and unexpected.
Yeah. My favorite.
And it has been so long since like December last race.
I love the fact that in the constructors standings, Red Bull are running last. That really just
and Haas a third.
Yes,
a bit different from last year.
Yeah.
Who would have thought Haas in the first race have got points, and last season they didn't get a single point. I'm like over the moon for that. Gunther's so happy.
Quite sad seeing McLaren
look like
Martin.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, we have not talked about McLaren.
Oh, that's not.
That was not an upgrade from last year. And
I was expecting big things.
Understandable that Daniel wasn't. I mean, Daniel finished ahead of Lando, but it was understandable that he struggled in qualifying.
Yeah.
He only had the free practice, which, as we said, had been shortened because he had COVID.
Yes, but it's not them. It's something with the car.
But here's the thing. I don't know if it's aero or if it's engine related, because all six of the non-Mercedes
both
powered. It could be both.
But it could be.
Both Williams, both Aston Martins, and both McLarens in the bottom six. That says to me that there's a common issue, and it's the engine. And given the fact that Mercedes are so far off the pace of the Ferrari and the Red Bull, I think they do have an engine issue.
It is worrying.
Yeah.
Let's hope they can upgrade the next few races and have a better car.
The upgrades to come, but I reckon once Mercedes tune the car in, it'll be good. And
Let's hope so. Good. I really hope so. I think we all really hope so.
Very sad.
I have some quotes for you that I've got 3 of my favorite quotes from the entire thing for you guys.
Feel it.
First one comes from Sky Commentary. The cars were giving the performance of a hippopotamus on a water slide when talking about when the cars were really like laden down with fuel and on cold tires, and how graceful but how slippery they were. And
hippopotamus.
Very visually effective.
It is.
And
it paints a picture. Let's put it that way.
They were saying that the drivers were like well behaved today, because to be fair, there's usually so many penalties going on. There was literally only that one with Ocon, so that was dope.
Yeah, there was almost one with Lando Norris and
Lance Stroll.
Nico Hülkenberg. I don't know. It was with Ashton
racing,
but it didn't go.
It was deemed a racing incident. Because it was a lap one. Because obviously the stewards are more lenient on lap one incidents. Especially going into the first few corners. But, obviously Ocon got the penalty for spinning Mick around. Yeah. My next quote comes from our world champion Max Verstappen to his mechanic and strategists and team, I'm never listening to you ever again, which is quite a long time, ever again. and this was relating to his outlaps. And I have the statistics here for you.
Can't wait to see how it goes with no engineer. It's so good.
GP is going to be like, oh yes, peace and quiet.
We all are.
On his first outlap from the first pit stop, he was 0.2 quicker than Charles Leclerc. But then on his second outlap, when he was told not to push the tyres whatsoever, because they're expecting to have to do a longish stint on them, Charles Leclerc was almost 1 second quicker than Max. And so that was why he was throwing a temper tantrum over the radio, was because he was like, if you'd have let me push on my outlap, I could have been ahead of him. But to be fair, those 0.2 could have meant that he was ahead of Charles even quicker and had more of a gap when going into the second DRS sector, which could have meant that he held that position for a bit longer. But I do think Charles would have got back past him given the strength of the Ferrari. But Charles's second pit stop was a lot quicker than Max's was, so I don't really think that almost 1 second gap between the two of them would have really made that much difference, especially considering he was over 2 seconds behind him. So he would not have been within the DRS area, but obviously slipstreaming is still important. So, I mean, I disagree with him on that one. I agree with his team regarding to how his tyres were looked after, but what do you guys think?
I mean, I don't know what to say. Obviously, the engineers know what they're talking about when they say don't push on the outlap.
It was because the tire was so cold. It was just only locking up and destroying the tires. In one way, I'm like, yeah, you don't have to push, but if you don't push on the pit exit, you lose so much time, and undercut will never work, I guess.
But I do agree that it could have made a difference. Maybe Max would have overtaken Charles at some point, but then considering how strong the Ferrari is, Charles would have overtaken him later on.
Yeah. Suspicious.
And it is kind of suspicious.
My last quote for today comes from our Lord and Savior, Toto Wolff. When he was asked about the Mercedes strategy,
himself,
boss man, he said, putting the hard on, referring to the tyre, was like putting our hand in the toilet. And it was such a mistake that it was a little bit shit.
Yeah, but why put your hand in the toilet?
I'm not sure if that's
something you wouldn't do.
What is that?
Translated to English, but
what is German?
He has the weirdest English translated quotes sometimes.
Yeah, I bet it looks better in German or something like that, but
probably,
yeah. Sometimes
let me tell you, he has a funny German accent.
It's because he's Austrian.
Because he's Austrian.
He speaks French too. That's crazy. He
speaks Italian, French, German, and I feel like he speaks 5 languages.
Wait.
But yeah, I think that's almost that's everything from the race, really.
I think we did it.
I think so.
First one done and
amazing.
Dusted. We survived.
Round of applause for us. Oh, well done.
So yeah, thank you, ladies, for joining me to chat about this.
Anytime.
Yeah.
Thank you to F1 for providing us with such an entertaining season opener.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mercedes, if we could figure out what our problems are and fix them, that would be great.
To kick
Agreed.
some bugs.
At this point, we know it's not sandbagging. Can we please fix this?
Unfortunate.
Maybe
Crying over
they
here.
just-
Please do something.
Please fix it.
Yeah, I think that rounds up a very successful and interesting season opener. And yeah, I'm gonna have to love and leave you all because we've been chatting for several hours now, and it is very
No
late.
one else I'd rather
It is late.
Yeah, because there was so much to talk about.
Mhm.
But yeah, so thank you for listening to us ramble on about
Thank you.
the season opener.
It's been
And
fun.
we will have another installment of Rule 107's Talks come the next race. So we'll see you all
Cool.
for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix.
See you later.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.